Hey all, it's Matt, your average gamer, and for this video, we're going to be looking at the top 5 options for the Grave Scythe. Now, the Grave Scythe is my favorite scythe because it has near colossal AR, and there's a lot you can do with it. For the first one here, we're going to start with Black Flame Tornado. This is an Astral War that I recommend trying for pretty much everybody, but the advantage here is that in Flame Art with the Grave Scythe, you have over 700 AR, and you have a relatively good weapon to use the Astral War with as well, although the Astral War does scale entirely from your Fate stat. Also, in the comment section, let me know what scythe build you like running and which scythe is your favorite. For me, as I mentioned, the Grave Scythe is my favorite because for the weight you get near colossal AR, it really is fantastic damage for the amount of weight, which I think is 9.5, making it a solid choice. By the way, I also get beat up a little more than I usually do in this clip with this dragon, but you don't have a lot of hyper armor with Black Flame Tornado, one of the disadvantages of it, but overall it does a lot of fire damage and a lot of percentage damage. And eventually he would end up going down. We're able to get in some massive damage with the Astral War. A couple uses I think it took in the end. In a second here, we're going to go over equipment and stats. For equipment, we have the Grave Scythe and Flame Art Affinity with Black Flame Tornado. Any seal for buffs, you can check out the armor set there. Ritual Sword and Shield Talisman, Shard of Alexander, Fire Scorpion Charm, Fire Tier, Fate Tier. Let's talk about stats. And for stats here, you're going to see this on the Flaming Strike one that I end up doing because it's around the same. We have 80 Faith with the Faith tier, 60 Vigor, 22 Mind, 25 Endurance, 17 Strength and Dexterity, and for our buffs, we are using Golden Vow and Halla Shabiri for more damage. And for the second build up here is probably my second favorite one on this list, probably tied with Black Flame Tornado, and that's Spinning Strikes, which can give you a lot of damage and a lot of bleed build up with Blood Flame Blade on the Grave Scythe. Yeah, this one is certainly no slouch. It has a lot of bleed build up because it's relatively quick, and with the Grave Scythe you have a lot of reach, so you're able to constantly hit as it spins around, and you can build up bleed. With Blood Flame Blade you'll get around 95 bleed per hit, which is a lot, and you'll build up on successive attacks this way too with Spinning Strikes, so you can make a build that is basically built around successive attacks and bleed. Now you can throw in the White Mass too for more damage, but I went for a Grim Reaper look with the Knight's Cavalry set and the Royal Remains helm. And yeah, the Grim Reaper's been done a lot, no question about that, but if you haven't ever cosplayed or done a cosplay as the Grim Reaper, I recommend doing it because it's a lot of fun, and the Grave Scythe can be a really fun and versatile weapon, as you're going to see with the 5 builds that we're showing off here. And we get an awesome final hit in there as we hit the dragon on its head to finish off the dragon. We are able to get a good amount of bleed build up, a lot of successive attack hits and whatnot. This is a powerful build with Spinning Strikes. Let's jump into equipment. And we have the Grave Scythe again in heavy affinity. We're using Blood Flame Blade. Any seal for buffs, you can check out the armor set there. Ritual Shield Talisman, Rotwing Sword Insignia, Shard of Alexander, Lord of Blood's Exaltation, Thorny Tier, Fate Tier. Let's talk about stats. So heavy affinity ends up being the most damage, and there's a huge benefit to this too. If we get to 66 strength with the 1.5 times bonus, we then end up with 99 strength. 60 vigor, 66 strength, 25 mind, 30 endurance, Golden Vow, Flame grant me strength, then we're using Blood Flame Blade. The next one up here really takes advantage of the near colossal AR, and that is the Flaming Strike build, which will give you around 800 AR in total when the Grave Scythe's lit on fire, and the follow-up attack, which scales with AR, you're going to get a lot of damage, over 2,000 damage out of. And we are in Flame Art here instead of going with Fire Affinity because I was able to get more AR out of it. Now keep in mind with Flaming Strike, the follow-up attack is going to scale with AR, so that will be a big factor when you have something in Flame Art that you're going to get a lot of AR out of. In this case we have over 800. The first attack though does scale with your strength stat. And that's that little bit of fire that you see, and that's why it doesn't really do a lot of damage in Flame Art. It'll do a little more damage with strength scaling and fire affinity, but overall that's not the better part of the Ash. The better part of the Ash of War is the follow-up and then lighting whatever weapon you have on fire for more damage. Yeah, if you follow my main channel, you've seen me do that a lot with the Bandit Curve Swords because they both get a B in Flame Art, and if you add Flaming Strike on both and then turn it into basically what's a jump attack, what turns into a jump attack build, you end up with around 750 AR in each one, and the successive attack damage is insane. Now back to this build specifically for the Grave Scythe, since we have the same stats we had for the Black Flame Tornado build, which will give us around 80 Faith with the Faith tier, feel free to grab something like the Giant Seal and throw in some fire incantations to add some versatility to the build. This is a highlight specifically of the weapon as a whole, but overall I would add stuff like that because the advantage of Flame Art or in Sacred Affinity if you're running a holy build or the holy damage as a whole isn't that great. You at least can throw in a bunch of different incantations and add a ton of different things to the build to keep the fights interesting, keep the game interesting, and hopefully have a lot of fun. Just a recommendation from me personally on how I normally run these builds, but overall for this entire video, I wanted to highlight the power of the Grave Scythe in different Ashes of War. Let's jump into equipment. For equipment, we have the Grave Scythe and Flame Art Affinity with Flaming Strike, any seal for buffs. You can use the Giant Seal for fire incantations, Ritual Sword and Shield Talisman, Shard of Alexander, Fire Scorpion Charm, Fire Tier, Faith Tier. Let's jump into stats. And for stats, we have 60 Vigor, 22 Mind, 25 Endurance, 17 Strength and Dexterity. We have 70 Faith. We get to 80 Faith with the Faith tier. We're using Golden Vow and Flame Grant Me Strength for our buffs. And I recommend all these, but I definitely recommend trying out the 2 Faith ones. They're a lot of fun. And the next one here is going to be a favorite for a lot of people, and that is Spinning Slash. Now, with Spinning Slash, you can get some posture damage, you can get a little bit of successive attack buildup, and of course, bleed buildup as well with Blood Flame Blade and Heavy Affinity. By the way, doing these clips and running around with the Grave Scythe, trying out all these different builds that I really didn't use that often until now, the only one I really used kind of frequently or sort of frequently was Spinning Strikes because it is really good. They're all good as a whole, but for me personally, this was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun and a lot of enjoyment trying out different things with one specific weapon. Now, I'll wait to see feedback and comments and whatnot, but if you want to see me highlight more weapons and then try out like a whole bunch of different Ashes of War with that specific weapon, that would be something I would be interested in doing on this channel as well, because I think I would have a lot of fun with that. So for Spinning Slash, I really like it on the Grave Scythe. I think a lot of people do. As far as poise damage goes, it's a little bit tough because all of this footage is on New Game Plus 7. As most of you know by now, I pretty much do all of my builds on New Game Plus 7, and they'll have around 30% more poise by that time. Yeah, as far as the poise goes, it goes up a little bit each journey up until it maxes out like HP and damage does around New Game Plus 7, and you get around 30% in total. The bosses get around 30% in total by New Game Plus 7. Let's jump into equipment. And we have the Grave Scythe and Heavy Affinity with Blood Flame Blade, Spinning Slash on it, any seal for buffs, Ritual Shield Talisman, Rotten Wing Sword Insignia, Shard of Alexander, Lord of Blood's Exaltation, Thorny Tier, Faith Tier. Let's talk about stats. And the stats are once the same overall because we're using, for 3 of these we ended up going, I think, in Heavy Affinity, then 2 were Faith builds. So 66 gets us to 99 Strength again. We have 60 Vigor, 25 Mind, 30 Endurance. And then we're using Golden Vow, Flame Grant Me Strength, and Blood Flame Blade for our buffs to get a lot of damage and bleed out of this one. And the last one's one that I really enjoy personally, but it is kind of niche, and that is Sword Dance on the Grave Scythe, once again in Heavy Affinity with Blood Flame Blade. By the way, if you're wondering why there's no main game bosses, most of the main game bosses, because I am on console when I record and stuff, I save that stuff for the main channel. This channel basically is for fun, some off-meta stuff as I mentioned before, and just kind of for enjoyment, so it's going to be mostly spoiler-free and mostly side bosses. Yeah, long story short, main channel is going to be the fun, but a lot of more like OP stuff with the occasional off-meta stuff. And then this channel, as I mentioned, I think earlier in the video, is going to be a lot of the off-meta kind of goofy stuff, and then testing different weapons and stuff. Should be a lot of fun. Yeah, so don't forget to comment below. Definitely comment below if there's different things that you want to see for Elden Ring, different builds, different weapon showcases and whatnot. Be sure to comment and let me know. And soon here, Commander O'Neill is going to go down to the Grave Scythe and Sword Dance, which is a really good combination, a powerful combination, but again, it's a little bit niche because I think a lot more people use Spinning Slash and Spinning Strikes for the Grave Scythe with Blood Flame Blade. Let's jump into equipment. We have the Grave Scythe in Heavy Affinity with Sword Dance, any seal for buffs. You can check out the armor set there. Ritual Shield Talisman, Rotten Wing Sword Insignia, Shard of Alexander, Lord of Blood's Exaltation, Thorny Tier, Faith Tier. Let's jump into stats. Same Heavy Affinity stats. If anybody's using this timestamped, I always timestamp all the builds too. We have 60 Vigor, 66 Strength, which gets us to 99 with the 1.5 times bonus, 30 Endurance, 25 Mind, Golden Vow, Flame Grant Me Strength, and Blood Flame Blade for our buffs. Thanks for tuning in and watching this one. We're going to do more stuff like this on this channel. I have some ideas ahead. And by the way, I saw a lot of people also wanted to see Faith and Intelligence build, so we're going to work on that too on my mage character. Most likely that one will be at level 200 though, because I have most of that stuff on my mage character. But of course, I'll show 150 stats that you can use for those builds too. Definitely be sure to sub. I appreciate everybody who's subbing to this channel so far. We'll try to grow this one too into a nice cool community, and see you guys soon.